I'm Leah B. Jackson, and today, pro gamer Greg Fields, also known as Idra, and I are going to be breaking down the best way to play Diablo in Heroes of the Storm. Alright, and here we are with Diablo in try mode. Tell us a little bit about him and his abilities.
Okay, Diablo is a great tanky initiator, CC bot kind of hero. Probably the tankiest and one of the best heroes for actually just like disrupting team fights and protecting your carries in the game. He has a couple of abilities. His passive is called Black Soulstone, and what that actually does is it builds up charges based on how many minions die in your presence and how you contribute to their death. You basically just have to do damage to them, and then they die sometime soon. And then you build up stacks, and we can see the stacks growing. And what that does is it gives you extra maximum health and extra health regen for every stack you build. And that is the reason that Diablo basically can become the tankiest hero in the game if he builds up a lot of souls in that Soulstone. As far as active abilities, his Q is called Shadow Charge, and that is a charge that is targeted on heroes. And it's a pretty long range, and it gives them a knockback and a minor stun when you use it. So that's great for initiating, great for gap closing. The thing is, it does have to be targeted on an enemy, so keep that in mind. It's not a great escape. You can't run away with it unless there happens to be like an enemy minion in the direction you want to run. Your W is called Fire Stomp, and that's a pretty simple AoE damage ability, and it just sends out waves of fire all around you. And unless you upgrade it, it is blocked by pretty much anything it hits, so you can only hit one target at once. You can't upgrade that. We will be looking at that in a second with the talents. But yeah, that's just minor damage, but it's good for wave clear, just a little bit of extra DPS. And then your really cool, really powerful ability, your E, is called Overpower, and what that actually does is it's melee range targeted, and it picks them up, and well, there it just dropped them because of the positioning, so 1 second on that. The cooldown's not clear, so we're going to have to wait a second as I respawn. And what it is supposed to do, if you're positioned correctly, is it actually picks them up and throws them over your head. So this is great for repositioning your enemy. As we can see, there, I actually threw him into tower range, and then you can body block and make him take extra damage and do all your other stuff. But that's extra good for peeling for your carry. If someone's trying to get in their face, you can just pick them up and throw them away. So that's one of the best battle control kind of abilities in the game. It's great for setting up picks, setting up everything. It's really, really powerful, really diverse. And then the ultimate ability that we're going to be looking at with this guy is called Apocalypse. And what that actually does is, we'll wait for Arthas to respawn, we'll take a look at it. It draws a circle with a little pentagram in it around every enemy hero on the team, regardless of where they are. It's a global ability. Every single enemy hero will have this little circle drawn around them. We can see it there. And if they stand in that for, I think it's 1.5 seconds, they will be then stunned for 2 seconds if they're in there when the mark explodes. So that's a great AoE team CC kind of thing. It also does a decent amount of damage, but mostly it's just the lockdown. This allows you to assist across the map. It makes you a great team fight presence, just a very strong ultimate ability in general.
So now we're going to go through Diablo's talents, and Greg is going to show you which ones that you want to get in order to play the best Diablo possible.
Okay, at Tier 1, pretty hands down, you're going to want to get Soul Feast. It is kind of an all-in option, because what this does is, for every soul gathered, Diablo gains an additional 5% health, and that actually doubles the effectiveness of each soul. It is originally 5, it becomes 10 after this. However, the other option is Devil's Stew, which you retain 25% of your souls when killed. That is a pretty big deal, because if you lose all your souls, you lose a lot of tankiness. Retaining 25% of them is nice. However, if you get this option, it's possible to just make him such a tanky beast that it's kind of worth the risk, and you just have to play around that. Play a little bit more careful and try to avoid dying, which is a little bit weird for a tank. Often it's okay for you to die, but for him it's really not. But yeah, as long as you keep yourself alive, this becomes well worth it. For the level 4 talent, I'm going to recommend Pierce. Amplified Healing is okay, and I feel like that's the second option, especially if you have a dedicated healer. If you have like Malfurion or something with a very powerful heal, that can become noticeable. However, Pierce is very helpful for wave clear and for gathering souls, because you don't actually have to last hit to gain a soul. You just have to participate in the creep's death, as far as I know. So if you use Pierce, what that does is allow your Fire Stomp waves to actually penetrate enemies and hit enemies behind them. So this allows you to hit an entire wave, push that out, gather your souls very quickly. And pushing power is very appreciated in a game like Heroes, because the faster you push a wave, the faster you can then go join your team and do more productive things. At level 7, you have a few options, but really Endless Death is the only one you want to focus on. Block, obviously, tankiness is nice for a tank, but Endless Death, if you're focusing on your souls, this increases its effectiveness by 400%. You go from 50 max souls to 250, which is just an absurd amount of bonus health, and you can't really pass that up. For level 10, for your ultimate ability, as I said, we're focusing on Apocalypse for this for this kind of style, this kind of build. It is great CC, and as a tank, that's generally your responsibility. You don't have to put out the damage. There are going to be other heroes to take care of that for you, so it's better for you to contribute more to the team fight on a utility standpoint. However, Lightning Breath is a very powerful ability, and I honestly feel it's kind of underrated. If you have good setup for it, as you can actually get off most of the duration on top of a bunch of enemies, it is a lot of damage. And not really to be underestimated. So if you see an enemy Diablo with that, you have to respect it, and it is worth considering if your team already has enough lockdown and they need more damage. Level 13 is a very diverse tier. There's a lot of different things you can get. Generally, I focus on the 2 tanky talents, the Spell Shield and the Relentless. You get Spell Shield if the enemy team is very nuke, damage spell oriented, like a Nova. Nova being the prime example, and then some other heroes in a similar vein. Whereas Relentless is anti-crowd control. The tooltip is bugged. It says 0%. I believe it's 50%, but it reduces the duration of silences, stuns, slows, and roots. So against any team with a lot of lockdown, or in any situation where you're having a lot of trouble being stunned or slowed and not being effective because of that, this is a great option. So either of those two for defensive purposes. If you're not dying at all and you really just need more initiation, then From the Shadows is a pretty okay option. It just increases the range of your charge by 2. So that's decent, but 9 times out of 10, you're going to get one of the defensive abilities depending on what's actually dangerous on the enemy team. And then at level 16 is another pretty straightforward one. The 2 Ws, you just really don't put out that much damage. It's not worth it to focus on it. Imposing Presence is an interesting talent that most people don't get too much, I feel, but it actually slows the attack speed of anyone who attacks you by 30%. The thing is, Diablo, usually you don't want to attack him. He's just an annoying tank. You're going to try and ignore him and kill the more important heroes. So if they don't attack you, this is completely wasted. So generally, you're going to want to go for Continuous Overpower. That gives you 2 charges of your E, your throw ability, which makes you one of the most disruptive heroes in any kind of team fight. No one is ever going to be able to get to your carry, or you can just continually lock down their carry if you manage to get to them, setting up easy kills, protecting your own team. Very, very powerful ability. And then at level 20, I really feel like Diablo is one of the most diverse in terms of which storm powers work. Both upgrades to either of his ultimate is quite strong. Dying Breath causes Apocalypse to recast whenever Diablo dies. However, you really don't want to die, so it's best not to focus for that. It's very, very important for you to not die so you can maintain your soul stacks. Bolt of the Storm is what I would recommend on him because he's a great initiator. You can just blink onto someone, overpower them over your head, and then charge them back into your waiting team and set up easy kills. So Bolt is very, very powerful on him and should be your choice most of the time. Storm Shield, something I feel most people pass up. It's an okay ability. It just makes your entire team a little bit tankier. It's worth noting that it's for 20% of each hero's maximum health. So if you have a very tanky team, this just amplifies that. But really, 9 times out of 10, Bolt of the Storm is a fantastic ability on Diablo.
All right, so it seems like Diablo is a super tank, and you want to go for abilities that increases soul stack hoarding, capabilities, and that make him, a great useful utility for his team.
Yep.
So now that we know how Diablo should be set up, how do you actually play him in the game?
One thing important to note with Diablo is that he's not like other tanks. To compensate for his soul stone mechanic that makes him so strong once he starts to stack it, he is a lot weaker than like an ETC or a Muradin early game. He very well can die if you're not careful. So you have to play a little bit more cautiously than you would with any other tanky hero. But other than that, he's still great initiation. If you can overpower first and then charge them back into your team, that's going to set up pretty much a free kill in the early game. So just look for the opportunity to do that. And otherwise, you're just focused on stacking your soul stone. It's more important for you to stay in lane than almost any other hero. You really need to be... It's just like a better version of Bribe. You really need to be around when the minions die. You don't want to be roaming constantly. So you should be in a lane. Other people should be coming to you. When it comes to team fights, everything is disruption. If you can initiate, that's great. You'd rather initiate with your overpower first, so you can then charge back into your team. That's always your goal. That's always what you should be looking for. And then once the team fight is actually fully engaged, you're just going to be sticking on your carries and using overpower to protect them when you can. If you can see the opportunity to charge to your opponent's carry or take out an important target, look for that, but be very careful about abandoning your own team because you are very disruptive in the middle of fights. You don't want to be chasing. You want to be in the fight itself. Your ultimate is pretty simple. Once the fight is broken out, you cast it, and then it stuns everyone. It's very simple. You don't have to do much else with it. Just very, very powerful. But yeah, the name of the game is just tanking and initiate. And to counter Diablo, you can punish him early on. Like I said, he is very, very tanky later on, but only once he has those souls. So if you can punish him before that, prevent him from ever getting a big stack, he's going to be not useless, but much, much smaller. The big thing is to always keep in mind his charge range. You always want to force him to charge first and then overpower, overpower. That way Diablo is actually in the middle of your army as opposed to vice versa. If he isolates you, you're in trouble. If he isolates himself, it's not nearly so bad. He is hard to burst down, but it's still much better than the alternative. And the big thing about countering Apocalypse is just coordinating your team. The biggest problem is normally not the stun, is that everyone scatters in different directions trying to get out of the circles, which leads to half your team being amongst the enemy team and half your team being too far away to help. So you all just need to run away and disengage whenever Apocalypse goes up, and then once it's down, you can re-engage. The only other thing to keep in mind is that he does have to build up stacks to be worthwhile. If he dies, he loses those stacks and he comes back much weaker, so try and take advantage of that if you can.
Double kill.
And there you have it, guys. But remember, this is our best way to play, and we want to hear yours in the comments.
Be sure to head over to Greg's Twitch channel for more pro tips, and for everything Heroes of the Storm, stay tuned to IGN.